Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and if you're looking for a neat and tidy Cakesicle tutorial, this definitely is not the one for you because I make so many mistakes with these Cakesicles, but I am going to be showing you in this video how I fix most of those errors to the best of my ability. So I made these Cakesicles previously, so I thought, wow, this will be a really kind of quick, fun tutorial to show you guys how to make these Geode Cakesicles. But unfortunately, things just didn't go as planned, and it was mostly because I was pretty tired. I'm sure if you have ever been tired when you're making cakes or decorating cookies, then you can relate. Now here's my first mistake. Ordinarily, there's nothing vastly wrong with using frozen Cakesicles and then dipping them later. All you need to do is let them defrost for about 10 minutes or so and they're good to go and ready to dip into the chocolate. But it is all about timing and temperature. So the reason that my temperature and timing was a little bit off was because I was digging out these sections for the geodes. Now, I will say that I don't dig deep enough, so later on in the video, you're going to see how I have to fix this issue. But so far, nothing actually went super wrong yet. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a little bit of Roxy Enriched Fat Dispersible Colorant, and then I'm also going to try out this Color Mill colorant, which I've never tried before. Now, this is probably my first mistake that I actually saw happen. I tried to use the hack to open that little seal, but it did not work. So I just had to open it the old-fashioned way. Now I will do a full review of those colors in a later video, but I can tell you that I do like the color that it produced. So I have two issues that are actually happening here. One, I ran out of flavorless oil, so my chocolate is a little bit too thick. And the second thing is that the Cakesicle has come to room temperature instead of staying a little bit colder, so that chocolate isn't setting up fast enough and it's causing the Cakesicle to slide down off of that stick a little bit. So I'm getting little pieces of cake going into my chocolate, which is causing some of those bubbles and those lumps. But I'm still trying to salvage it at this point, so I am putting on those sugar crystals to create that geode. But it's at this point here when I'm trying to add more things on to kind of make it work for me, it's just not working. And I realize it's because my geode is just not deep enough. If I don't have this cavernous enough, it's not going to look correct. It's just going to kind of look like crystal rocks on top. So I'm carefully trying to dig things out a little bit, but yep, that's my next fail there. I created cracks, which was actually to be expected because it's really difficult to break up chocolate like this without getting some cracking. But I luckily wasn't too worried because I did want fault lines anyway on these Cakesicles. I will say that having a little bit of that cracking though might mess with the integrity of the actual Cakesicle itself. So if you were doing this for an order or you were actually going to give this away, I would seal it up a little bit more with some melted chocolate and then add the fault lines on. My next thing that happened to me as I was creating these was my airbrush system broke. So yeah, that hose actually snapped a little bit, so the air filtering through was actually just leaking out of the hose. So I will have to purchase a new hose or a completely new edible airbrush machine. All right, now time to fix everything with my favorite thing, gold. We're going to add in some of these fault lines here. This is just an edible luster dust mixed with a little bit of vodka. When I first started making Cakesicles and cake pops and painting on chocolate, I thought you wouldn't be able to use it, but if you're sparing with it and you do it a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier with that luster dust, you are able to make that work for you. Now I'm using my favorite Choco Pan modeling chocolate by Satin Ice in pink to create this really simplistic rose. If you've ever seen me use my favorite rose cutter, I pretty much use the same principles by thinning out those edges and then folding it in half and rolling it up. The only difference is I'm not actually using a cutter, so you end up with a little bit more of an imperfect but more whimsical looking flower, and it can also be significantly smaller. After that, I'm taking a little bit more gold and I'm just edging this all around here. You can skip this part, you can do whatever. I just felt like this Cakesicle needs a lot of work, so I'm going to put as many details as possible on here. Now we're finally going to try and cover up most of those lumps and bumps, though I'm not super successful at covering up every single one, but trying to cover it up with some of those sixlets and some of those edible pearls, and of course, a healthy dose of this gold leaf. I've actually been trying to increase my gold leaf supply and find some rose gold leaf as well. So I was just making these Cakesicles just for fun for my friend, but I'm gonna go the distance and I'm gonna add some ribbon on. And if you guys have watched any of my videos, you know that ribbon and packaging is something that I'm not really a huge fan of doing, but I will admit that it really adds to that luxury of your pieces. So here I'm using some wired ribbon, which I love working with. It's a lot easier, there's a lot less slip, and I find for Cakesicles it works really well because you can control the puffiness and all of that good stuff. I'm also being very cognizant to keep that bow really nice and flat. Then I'm folding in these ends so it has a nice peak, but you can do this at an angle as well. You don't have to fold it like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a twist tie and I'm looping it in the back so that this bow stays nice and flat. You can tie this around the stick just like a traditional bow, but I always find I get breakage really easily when I do that because my hand knocks something. Plus, Cakesicles can be a little bit delicate, especially when they have so much detail on them. Now, there definitely still are some imperfections on this. Usually I can get my chocolate to be a lot smoother. However, I will say that the reason that I showed you guys this video is because I know so many of us get into those positions where we're making a lot of orders, or even if we're not making a ton, but we just don't have that cake mindset. And I usually have it, but if I don't, I find the best way to fix it is just to give myself a little bit of distance from the project, and then that way I can come back and make it into something that I am more proud of. And I do think that these turned out fairly nicely even after all of my fails. This is also why it's super important to give yourself enough time to complete orders. Now let's get into the pricing of these Cakesicles. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm basing the pricing on the fact that these Cakesicles would have no cracks and they would have no lumps and bumps. They would just be made as usual. So these would be a custom order only, and I would charge $6.50 each Canadian, and there would be a minimum order of 24. Whenever I make cupcakes, cookies, Cakesicles, cake pops, I always had a minimum order of 24. Now, I'm not saying that you can't sell things that have some mistakes that you've covered up, because I'm sure we do that all the time. The only reason I say this is because if it has something like cracks in a cake pop, it does mess with the structural integrity of the product. So that's why I say it for this particular thing. And as per usual, all of my pricing is in Canadian dollars. I live in a very expensive province, so the best way to use my pricing guide is to look at a series of my videos so you can see the differentiation between the pricing of products. So this is a new ending segment that I want to add to all of my upcoming videos, but I know so many of you have been using my tutorials to create really amazing things. So the first person that I'm going to highlight here is Paige, and this is her very first cake. It is absolutely amazing. Go follow her on Instagram. And if you want to be my next shout out, you can go ahead and follow me on Instagram at SD Bake Shop and tag me, and I will take a look at your work and you could be featured on my next video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading weekly, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!